In April this year, Anwar Ibrahim was freed from jail to bury his mother. But for Malaysia's former Deputy Prime Minister, her funeral would be but a brief respite from prison walls. Anwar's jail term is clearly taking its toll. Wheelchair bound, he's in constant pain with a back injury, sustained, supporters say, from a police bashing. To see Anwar like this drives home the enormity of the injustice committed against him. Only 4 years ago, this was Anwar Ibrahim. The man once groomed to rule Malaysia is serving 15 years for trumped-up charges of sodomy and abuse of power, when his only real crime was to challenge Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad. The government's repression of the opposition has now widened to include not only the supporters of Anwar, but any of those opposed to the government of Dr. Mahathir. On the morning of April 10th, Malaysia's tropical humidity was already rising as commuters headed for work. Among them, though, were several whose support for Anwar Ibrahim made them enemies of the state, and they are about to feel the full force of police power.
And suddenly, a bunch of guys jumped out, started banging on our car, and asked me to open the door. He said, "We are arresting you under Internal Security Act. We have reason to believe you are a threat to national security," and that's it.
The I.S.A. is meant to target those who threaten to violently overthrow the state. Using it, anyone can be detained without evidence for 2 years. The sentence can be rolled over for as long as the government deems necessary. But it's now being used as the main instrument of political repression.
We shout on the streets, like all demonstrations, Mahathir, step down, free Anwar, and things like that. But they said that we plan to bring in guns, bombs, rocket launchers, grenade launchers, and stuff like that. And when we were arrested on grounds that we were part of a conspiracy to bring in all these bombs and guns.
Was there ever any plan by you and the opposition members to acquire weapons?
Of course not. For a simple reason, we don't know how to use them, And the other reason is, if we were to topple this government through an armed revolution, we would not get the support of the democratic world.
Raja Petra Kamarudin was released after 2 months of police interrogation. He's fearlessly returned to publish websites and newspapers, essential voices for the opposition against a state-run media. Only a year ago, this was the level of public support Anwar's opposition party generated. Public rallies that doubled as markets of information. After her husband's jailing, Dr. Wan Aziza Ismail became president of his opposition Kiadalan party, backed by youth wing leader Izam Noor. Are you surprised by the turnout here tonight?
Quite expected, It's a bit, of course it's a very big crowd, but especially after the verdict, this is actually a normal turnout from the people.
Together they travelled the country in a series of road shows, regularly drawing crowds of 10,000 people or more every night. But Mahathir has now banned any outdoor meeting greater than 3 people.
Reformasi! Reformasi! Reformasi!
I.S.A's appearances are now reduced to small halls. On a sweltering afternoon, 80 loyal supporters brave potential retribution to hear her word. But even during our interview, I.S.A is being closely watched by police, ready to arrest her at any time.
I have been interrogated twice, well, 3 times now, on the Sedition Act. And I've undergone those moments where they question me for hours. But, I've been warned that if I continue, I may face repercussions.
How do you know what sort of support you've got?
By the sympathy that I get from many people. If I walk the streets, I go to the ground, they tell me in whispers sometimes, Of course, furtively, because I think we are all being watched, and I think probably now too you can sense that we are being watched. And as we speak.
With Anwar in prison, it was his former political secretary, I.S.A who became the opposition's most dynamic face. As the roadshow rolled on, I.S.A developed the charismatic style of his former boss and was also forging key alliances with other opposition parties. Just days after this speech to the influential Islamic PAS party, I.S.A was rounded up in Mahathir's April crackdown and is now in jail under the I.S.A with 68 other charges pending. In a letter smuggled from his cell, I.S.A outlines what he believes to be the real reason for his detention. All 10 individuals detained are active elements of reform in their own way. They are not related to any security threat in any way. They are a threat to the political domination of Mahathir's government. The whole process is to break one's spirit and destroy one's resolve. I was asked to strip, blindfolded and handcuffed almost all the time, except when I was in my cell. I.S.A's wife Bahira is now bringing up 3 children alone. But solidarity comes from others whose lives have been destroyed by the I.S.A. All insist their husbands, fathers and brothers are peaceful pro-democracy activists, not threats to national security.
That allegation is so much ridiculous because my husband is a very peaceful, loving man. What he would want to see is the country could uphold the justice and maintain its democracy as it truly means, not as what a dictator means.
I.S.A is now jailed in a remote prison camp.
How are you? Okay. Hi. Good to see you here.
He travels frequently the 3 hours to Kuala Lumpur to face a range of charges. When he appeared in court last month, he told us it's not him on trial, but Dr. Mahathir. In a recent affidavit presented in court, I.S.A detailed how police focused simply on his opposition to the Prime Minister. I was asked about my political stand and the reasons for my opposing Dr. Mahathir. No problems on internal security arose. There was no interrogation concerning national security.
Well, like I said,
it was an experience shared by Raja Petra.
My crimes were all about my articles, my writings, my activities, especially on the Free Anwar campaign. They wanted to know our networking, who we know, what we have done, who we have been in contact with, all the foreign media that we have been talking to, foreign embassies that we have been meeting and so on and so forth. So the way I see it, they were just trying to size up our networking and our strength, trying to find out who we know, who we have met, who we have spoken to, and therefore how strong we are.
So nothing to do with national security, more to do with your political beliefs.
Correct.
And your opposition to Mahathir.
Correct. Why do you support Anwar? Okay, what has Anwar done for you? You know, Anwar's done nothing for you. Why do you want to support him?
This was a prayer vigil for I.S.A, but in Mahathir's Malaysia, even candles and flowers are now considered national security risks. Arrests of political opponents are not new in Malaysia, but Dr. Mahathir has never before cracked down like this. And it's not just opposition veterans who are now being targeted. Harul Anwar was detained for 23 days. He regularly volunteers his time to tutor slum kids, but in June he was arrested for being an enemy of the state.
They said that I have threatened the national security, but I strongly believe I have been detained because they want to crack down the student movement and my group, because we're quite involved in reformasi.
A fire in this University of Malaya hall was the pretext for Harul's arrest. It was later found to be sparked by faulty wiring, but in a now familiar pattern, police questioned Harul not on his alleged arson, but on his politics and support for Anwar.
They told me that Anwar is really a person that you can't trust. Yeah? Anwar is the liar to the people. Actually, they want to brainwash me. They want to turning over. It's a process of turning over, brainwash, and they want to read my mind. The idea of the young generation. What are we not happy to the state?
Anti-Mahathir feeling is now everywhere, even among his previously faithful Muslim supporters. In the last election, a massive protest vote against Mahathir made the Islamic PAS party Malaysia's biggest opposition party. PAS leader Nik Aziz admits gaining from the Anwar factor, but says Malays are tiring of Mahathir's increasing repression and his ruling party's corruption.
Ada lagi isu lain yang lebih berat dalam menggugat keselamatan negara, khususnya masalah ekonomi. Berapa banyak wang Malaysia yang hilang.
Dr. Mahathir has reacted to the PAS threat by again employing the I.S.A, this time to arrest Muslims for alleged militancy.
The government hopes by arresting and eliminating some of the more activist leaders of Keadilan and the youth wing of the Islamic Party, this will frighten Muslims from being involved with the opposition.
On August 2nd, police arrested 10 Islamic Party members, accusing them of running a militant cell seeking the violent overthrow of government. They included the son of party leader Nik Aziz. Can I ask for the record, sir, can you categorically rule out the possibility that your son was running a militant Islamic cell?
Saya tak buat benda tu. Benar-benar saya tidak setuju. Saya kata kalau nak tangkap anak saya ada bukti, bolehlah. Tak ada apa-apa. Dari segi Islam pun, kita kena tindak pada orang yang buat salah kalau ada bukti. Tapi kalau tak ada bukti, baik dari segi demokrasi Islam, memang tak boleh. Tapi mereka buat juga.
Nick Aziz's son and 8 others have been jailed without trial or any proof of militancy for 2 years. And the arrests continue. 2 weeks ago, 6 more PAS members were arrested.
My own suspicion is that most of these people happen to be among the more effective and active youth activists in PAS, and that's hence they have been targeted.
This use of the I.S.A. to now stifle political opposition seriously undermines Malaysia's claim of being a modern democratic state.
Sooner or later, there's going to be increasing frustration with these very, very severe constraints which restrict civil liberties and democratic rights in very, very fundamental ways. And when that happens, the legitimacy of the entire system is going to be at stake.
1 year after Anwar was jailed, many of his supporters are now also in prison. Public rallies are restricted. The threat of arrest has driven opposition activity underground. Getting away with the jailing of Anwar has emboldened Asia's longest-serving leader to the point where Mahathir is now willing to destroy his nation's civil liberties in a ruthless drive to retain power.